I think it's a broad-based sort of evaluation, right? I mean, I think about it, I was a chemist in a research and development laboratory, and I had multiple people evaluating my work, right? There was some basic data, like I had a huge project where I had to computerize the entire inventory process and computerize it for our whole program. So they could actually go back and look at how much money we saved, how much, all this, they could go through and calculate like clear quantitative metrics as to how well I had done my job. 2, I got evaluated by my boss. My boss sat down, we went through this whole entire process of like what were the goals that you had set, did you achieve these goals that we had set, how well are you doing, are you working well with others, all that kind of stuff. And so there was that second piece, and then the third piece is they always asked me for my input too. And we had a bigger conversation about like my overall performance as it related to what I wanted to achieve. One thing that I've learned also too in the last few years of leadership is that it's actually important to do almost like a 360-degree evaluation. And I love now getting feedback from all of my peers as well. When I was on the school board over at the community charter school, I implemented a policy where the board gave each other feedback and we publicized that. So we were able to say, hey, look, this is how we all feel like we're working together as a team. This is how well we're doing together. And so we evaluated each other and saw those results as well. So I think that like it needs to, when we look at evaluating a teacher, we do need to look at quantitative measures and say like, are kids learning? Because if a kid leaves a classroom and isn't able to read, and they're supposed to be able to read at the end of the year, we need to hold ourselves as a community responsible. And whether, we can't necessarily lay all the blame at the foot of the teacher, but we all need to know what's happening so we can evaluate our progress as a community. But if we look at quantitative measures, if we look at a manager's performance or your principal's performance, if we look at our own personal evaluation, if we look at like how we are perceived by others in our community, I think those are 4 potential metrics in order to utilize to determine how well and how effective a teacher is as well.
Let me say this to you,
Sure.
Aaron. Assume that I'm a 7th grader and I just asked you that question. Succinctly tell me, who's going to conduct that evaluation and what are they going to use to document it on? What are they going to use to do it?
Sure. Your boss is going to evaluate
but talking with the average person who is not going to read through all of what you just said, tell me who should do that?
Your boss is going to evaluate you.
And that boss would be?
Your principal is going to evaluate you. They might get some feedback from your grade level chair, maybe from your department chair as well. They're going to use student test scores and evaluation of just how well kids have done in your class, like student grades. If every kid in your class got an F, or if every kid got in the class in your A, we need to have a conversation about that, right? We're going to take into account just your overall team performance and how you work as part of a team. And we're going to look to see if you've achieved some of the goals and worked to accomplish the goals of the school.
Let me ask you this, and I understand that. That's good. I can really, should the teacher's pay be associated with that evaluation?
I'll tell you what.
Please do.
When I was a teacher in Durham, I remember my first year, we had the highest growth in math and reading scores on our team. Our team was so proud. We were a bunch of, 2nd, 3rd year, 1st year teachers. We all gave each other these big high fives. We thought we were amazing, right? The kids were celebrating, parents were so happy. And at the end of the year, we got handshakes from everybody. And then I remember at the end of the year, a couple people got some real big pats on the back because they got their national board certification, they had gotten their master's degrees, and they were getting larger checks at the end of the year, and they were talking about that. And I had nothing against that because you know what? That's how the system is set up. My parents both got into education after I got my college degree. They went back to school, became educators, and so they definitely understand the step pattern and they make that happen for themselves. I get it. But it was sending me a subtle message that one thing was prioritized over another. And I don't have any problem with the way that it was set up and people working within the system that's created, but it did send that subtle message. And I don't know that that's necessarily the absolute message that we want to send as a district. I absolutely don't believe that we have pay for performance figured out, right? I think that that's a huge conversation to be had with teachers, to be had with staff, and to be really had at a school level to talk about really how we're supporting folks to achieve those things before we pay for that performance. We have to provide development to achieve that performance in the first place. But I think at the end of the day, I would love to be able to send the subtle message that those results with kids are what matter most to our community. I don't know how to do that necessarily. I think it's a bigger conversation than what we've done over these last few months. But I think it's something that I think long term would be a really interesting thing to do.
Let me tell you what I've heard.
Sure.
Aaron favors an evaluational system by the principal, by a group of people, a team or whatever, but he's not sold on the fact that the teacher's pay should hinge on that evaluation. Is that what I heard you say?
I think if we can figure out how to do those evaluations well, and teachers trust it, principals trust it, and we as a community trust it, then I think we can roll forward. If any one of those stakeholders don't believe in it, then I think we need to slow down and ensure everybody's on board.
Okay.
Could I just clarify again in part of that? I sort of think I'm hearing well, it's not real clear to me. Would testing be a part of that evaluation which informs the pay of teachers?
I think that if a teacher's performance, if kids came in all on grade level on the EOG and then left your class all below grade level on the EOG after a year in your classroom, that should definitely be a part of your evaluation, and that should definitely be a part of the final say on how things go. If all the kids came into your classroom, if 20% of them came into your classroom below grade level, and at the end of the year 100% of them were on grade level on the EOG, I absolutely believe that should be taken into account as part of your evaluation and part of your eventual pay if we could figure out how to make that happen. So yes, I think that like we should use the data that's there. Do I believe that we should absolutely create a new test for the East Beck culinary arts program? Absolutely not, right? But there's data there from the national competitions, from the fact that you can sit down and have a great lunch, and we need to count that as data and those authentic assessments, those performance tasks along the way. It's more difficult to do, and it's going to require more professional development and support for our teachers in order to roll out a test like that. It's so much easier to give everybody a standardized test that's a multiple choice question, right? Much more difficult to really have authentic assessments. But in order to do that, we got to train our teachers to do that. We got to support our schools to support that. And until we do that, it's hard to actually ask people to make those things happen.
So do you feel like that? Did I hear you say that you believe? I think what I'm hearing is you're saying that there would not necessarily be tests in every subject, so that you don't really support creating new tests, but that the work on in terms of the evaluation of the ways of assessing teachers, but that in terms of pay for performance, while in theory you support pay for performance,
I do the same thing.
you would. I'm sorry. You would not support it if any one of the groups that you mentioned did. For example, the teachers would vote as to whether this would be.
If the teachers didn't trust it, I don't think we could roll it out. I wouldn't be supportive of rolling it out if the teachers didn't trust this as a clear metric. If teachers didn't feel like their evaluation was going to be accurately reflected in this evaluation, then I don't think we could use it.
So are you saying the teachers would get to vote on it?
I think we would need the teachers really to vote on it.